Good morning, class 9 children. Welcome back. Today is Wednesday, and as per your routine, you have English literature or English paper 2 to continue. Hope you all are safe and fine at home and carrying on with your online um, studies seriously. And also hope that you are viewing all the tutorial classes given through online by all the subject teachers. So please be serious to take lessons because uh, right now this is the only way we can reach to you, and you can also take the benefit of what all the teachers are doing their hard work providing you the lessons taught through online classes. So coming back to our lesson that we were discussing in our last online class, we had taken a new chapter in Treasure Trove. That was a story, Hearts and Hand, written by the world famous author O. Henry, or William Sidney Potter, the original name of the author. And in the story, uh, it has taken us to America, where we are in the West, and we are at the Denver railway station. B&M express train is scheduled to make its journey towards east, and the author O. Henry takes us to one of the compartments of the train and gets introduces us with a pretty girl whose name is Miss Fairchild. Right? She is an elegant lady, young lady, and she is all alone. Had taken her seat, and she's surrounded by lots of her belongings, and these all things tell us that she is a regular train traveler. But as we know that whenever we do travel in a train, we need it to be very cautious, and we need to know who the people come and take the seats in the same compartment that we are in, because many a times there are lots of problems, lots of incidents that do take place. So we have to open our eyes and mind and even ears to look at everything in the compartment. So within no time we saw two gentlemen get into the compartment, and we saw one was a young fellow. He looked handsome, he looked quite frank, and he was well dressed up. The other fellow was a very heavily built man, roughly dressed, and had a gloomy face. What was surprising about these two men, what we found was both of their hands were handcuffed, right? And there was an empty seat just opposite to the young lady who was seated there. The two of them take that seat. The young lady perhaps was pondering, thinking deeply that who the person would come and take the seat. If any known people would come and take the seat, at least she would be happy, because she would get a person whom she can talk to as a friend, and the journey would go happily by, right? No matter, the seriousness of the young lady suddenly gets changed into happiness, a smile on the face, when she noticed that the person who was seated in front of her happens to be a known person to her, right? And without wasting much time, she threw or stretched her right hand to have a handshake with the known person, right? She even recognized the person and named him Mr. Easton, right? And then told Mr. Easton, uh, let me volunteer myself to talk to you, and to say you that it seems you have forgotten your old friend, your childhood friend, she said. Right? Mr. Easton was suddenly, you can say, startled when somebody pulled his name out amongst the crowd, and the startling or the surprise in Mr. Easton remained only momentary, because you saw a quick change in him, and he lifted his he threw rather, or he stretched his left hand to have a handshake with the young lady, and also apologized that he was not able to shake hands with the right. And he lifted up and showed why there was a problem with his right hand. Right, his right hand was handcuffed. Right, the very pretty young lady, Miss Fairchild, was very happy to see a childhood friend of hers, but on seeing the uh, handcuff, her happiness vanished. Her happiness disappeared, as you saw, because it is a shudder for everybody to see the known person to you is handcuffed, because the handcuffed person is either uh, a police officer or he's a criminal. Basically, we take the person is a criminal or a convict or a guilty. That's why he's being handcuffed and is being taken to the jail, right? So that is why here the young lady, the beautiful young lady, Miss Fairchild, suddenly was you can say stricken to know her known person was handcuffed here. But the feeling of Miss Fairchild was being read by the heavily dressed man, the roughly dressed man who was heavily built. He then volunteered with an apology to Miss Fairchild, saying that Miss Fairchild, I'm sorry that I'm talking to you, though I'm not known to you. It seems that you are known to this person, right? The young fellow who was with him and is handcuffed with him. So he is Marcel. Marcel means he is a police officer, right? And he's taking me to Leavenworth prison because I'm sentenced for 7 years imprisonment by the law, right? On the case of counterfeiting, he told, right? When he said that the young fellow whom the young lady knows is a Marcel, the lost happiness on the face of Miss Fairchild is again back. She seemed to be happy again because she knew now the person whom she knows is not a convict, is not a criminal, is not a guilty, right? And then she said to Mr. Easton, right? This is a surprise meeting with you. After a long, we met, and you have become a marshal, you have become a police officer. So how nice it is, right? Here, Miss Fairchild told Mr. Easton. Mr. Easton said here that. Um, After all, like when a person grows up, you need to earn for your living, right? Money matters a lot for everybody, right? Money is a want of everyone, so you have to engage yourself to some task to earn for your living. So he said this, but Marcel's job is not as handsome or as good as an ambassador's job is. He told, Mr. Easton said, right? An ambassador's job is a very comfortable job, is a very cozy job, right? It's a very light work, right? He said. But Miss Fairchild told, right? An ambassador's job is a very boring job because you have to sit inside the four walls in his office and just carry on with his official works, official papers. That is what his work is. But coming to a marshal or a police officer is a very, very daring work, right? It's a very, very remarkable job because you have to ride a motorcycle, you have to ride on the horseback, carry a pistol, and then chase the criminals, right? You understand? So this is what here Miss Fairchild said. So according to Miss Fairchild, she said here that Marcel's job is a heroic job, is a work of a hero, right? She said, right? But when she was telling this to Mr. Easton about he being lucky to become a marshal, a police officer, right? Her eyes was constantly looking at the handcuff, right? Perhaps there was some kind of doubt in her, right? Doubt in the sense that she was quite taken aback to see here the police officer is also handcuffed, right? So what could be the reason? Perhaps he is not known about this. So till there we had seen on our last day class in the chapter Hearts and Hands, written by O. Henry or William Sidney Porter. Now what happens in the remaining part of this story? Let us continue today. And you know that the hallmark of O. Henry is there is always a surprise ending. So what is the surprise end of this chapter, Hearts and Hands? Let's try to find out today. So see. So we reached page number 70 and last paragraph to continue today. So please see. The girl's eyes fascinated. Who is the girl here? The girl is Miss Fairchild. Miss Fairchild's eyes was fascinated. Fascinated means attracted. She was very attracted towards what? See, went back, widening a little. Her eyes were open a little, you can say bigger, right? As she was talking to Mr. Easton, to rest upon the glittering handcuff. So she was looking at the shining handcuff. Glittering means shining, right? Luminous handcuff. So she was talking to Mr. Easton, but her eyes were constantly looking at the handcuff, right? Perhaps she has the question, right, asked to herself, why the police officer is also handcuffed here, right? Now see, don't you worry about this, miss, said the other man. The other man, the gloomy-faced man, the heavily built man, the roughly dressed man, he was noticing, right, Miss Fairchild, right? And when he noticed that Miss Fairchild is quite, you can say, clumsy, quite odd to notice the handcuff in her known person, Mr. Easton, who introduced himself there as the Marcel. He then tried to make her understand, right? So what did he say? See, don't you worry about them, miss. So don't worry about this handcuff, right? All marshals handcuff themselves to their prisoners to keep them from getting away. So this is the duty of the police officer. Whenever the police officer catches any thief, any criminal, any convict, the first and foremost, what do they do is they handcuff their own hand and also with the criminal, so that the criminal won't escape, the criminal won't run away. Right now, if the both people are now handcuffed, the prisoner cannot escape here, cannot run away. Right now, if he will run away, the police will go with him. Right? Yes, now. So that is why here the roughly dressed man, the physically fit man, here told Miss Fairchild that you don't worry, seeing this handcuff. Right? All marshals, all police inspectors, police officers, what do? They handcuff themselves to the hands of the prisoner in order to, right? You can say, make the prisoner not run away from their catch, right? Mr. Easton knows his business, so he told Mr. Easton knows his job. Mr. Easton knows his work, what he is supposed to do as a police officer, right? This the roughly built dressed man told this to Miss Fairchild, right? Who perhaps was with some kind of doubts. Why handcuff in the hand of the police officer, right? Then see, will we see you again soon in Washington? Asked the girl. Then the young beautiful girl asked Mr. Easton, right? Are we again meeting in Washington? Right? She asked. That means in the future, are we again meeting or not? Right? Like we met here suddenly, all of a sudden after a long years of gap, right? So are we again meeting in Washington? She asked. Not soon, I think, said Easton. But Mr. Easton says, I don't think so, we'll meet soon again. Right? There is least chance that we meet again very soon. Right? Why? He says, my butterfly days are over, I fear. So he says, I fear means I am afraid to say that my butterfly days are over. My butterfly days means my enjoyable time is over. My youthful days are gone, he said. Right? Mr. Easton said, I fear, I am afraid to tell you, Miss Fairchild, that my butterfly days are gone. My butterfly days are over. My enjoyable time is finished. My youthful days are gone, he said. Right? I love the West, said the girl irrelevantly. Irrelevant means unnecessary. Changing the topic. Right? Now she changed the topic and then says, right? She liked and loved coming in the West. She enjoyed being here, she says. Yeah. Her eyes were shining softly. Her eyes were glittering. She had beautiful eyes. Right? She looked away out the car window, and as she told this, she looked outside the car window. Car window is the train window. She was viewing the beautiful nature passing by because they were in the train that was running. Right? So she changed the topic and said unnecessarily. Right? She began to describe about her coming to the West. She said here that she liked being here in the West. Right? Looking outside the window. She began to speak truly and simply without the gloss of style and manner, and she said it very casually, without adding any style in her speech, without adding any, you can say made-up part in her speech, right? Mama and I spent the summer in Denver. And then she began to explain why she was there in the West. Mama means mother. My mother and I had come here in the West to spend our holidays here in Denver, right? She said. She went home a week ago, but now my mother is already gone a week ago. Right? She had already taken leave a week ago because father was slightly ill. Because we received the news that father is not well, he is unwell. Right? On receiving the news from the father that he is unwell, so my mother took leave. I stayed behind, or I stayed here, right, for some days. I could leave and be happy in the West. So she says that this place is so nice, right? So I took some more of the days to stay here. Meanwhile, my mother had already taken leave to assist my father who was ill, right? But I like the West. I love the West. That's why I wanted to put up myself some more days out here, right? I think the air here agrees with me. And she told the reason why she liked the West. She liked it because the weather is very fine. Weather is very cozy here, right? It's a very lovely weather, right? So she said this, right? I like this place West because the weather is very, very suitable. It's very pleasurable, right? She said, money isn't everything. And in between she said, money is not everything. Money isn't everything. Money is not the want of everyone, right? She said. But people always misunderstand things and remain stupid. But people, they misunderstand in earning money, and so they become idiot. Say they become foolish, they become stupid, right? She said, right? So changing the topic again, she came to talk about money. That money isn't everything, right? She said, right? But people are says that they misunderstand, right? Uh, um, of earning money, and so they become stupid in earning the money in different ways, right? And many even become, you can say, insensible in earning money, right? She said, right? And as he told this, perhaps he was waiting the remark, the comment to be made by Mr. Easton, right? But Mr. Easton was quiet. He didn't reply, right? Say, Mr. Marcel, growled the glum-faced man, but the roughly dressed man who was available, right? He then spoke, Mr. Easton. He said, sir, right? O police officer, Mr. Marcel, right? Growl means uttered, right? Heavily and angrily. The glum-faced man, right? So he told, right now, Mr. Easton, who is a police officer, right? Please reply. Right now, she is telling you something about money, right? And Mr. Easton was quiet. He didn't have any answer to reply, right? So the roughly dressed man here poked Mr. Easton, telling him that he please reply, right? He said, this isn't quite fair. So he says this not sensible. When somebody is talking to you on some topic, right, and you remain quiet, you remain unanswered. So this is quite absurd, right? Here the roughly dressed man said. So when somebody told you something, you should reply, right? That is what he told. I'm needing a drink and haven't had a smoke all day. But suddenly there was a change in the topic again. The roughly dressed man said, what did he say? I'm needing a drink. So I want to drink, he said, all of a sudden, right? And even told that since a long time I haven't smoked. I need a cigarette to smoke, he said. Okay. Haven't you talked long enough? So he then questioned Mr. Easton, right? So haven't you talked long enough with this young lady? So if it is over, then let us go, right? That's what was a hint. Take me in the smoker now, won't you? I'm half dead for a fight. So he said, take me to the smoker room, right? That means in a railway compartment, right? Everywhere, in all the compartments, it's not permissible that you smoke, that you drink, because there are some gentle people who are seated who are non-smokers, right? So it may harm their health. That's why they need to go to a room, a separate room, where they can smoke cigarette, right? That's why here the roughly dressed man said, right? So if you have talked enough, now we can go to the smoker room so that I can smoke, because I am dire need of a cigarette to smoke. Since the morning I haven't done so, he said. I am half dead for a pipe. That means I am half dead for a cigarette. Here pipe means cigarette, right? I need to smoke, he said. Yes or no? So I'm half dead for a pipe. I'm half dead for a cigarette to smoke. Otherwise I'll die, he said. Okay. The bound travelers rose to their feet. So the bound means going to. The going to travelers got up from their seats. That means Mr. Easton and the roughly dressed man, they both stood up from their seats. Right? Easton with the same slow smile on his face. But as Mr. Easton got up from the seat, he had the slow smile on his face, right? Very clumsy smile on his face when he looked at Mr. Easton. I can't deny a petition for tobacco, he said lightly, right? And then Mr. Easton told Miss Fairchild, I can't deny. That means I can't refuse. I wouldn't object, right? I wouldn't say no. A petition is a request, right? Here somebody is requesting me for something, so I can't deny it. I have to listen to his request, right? And he is wanting to go for a tobacco. He is wanting to go for a smoke, right? He is told, so I can deny it. I can refuse it, right? He said lightly. Lightly means he said casually, easily. He said, it is the one friend of the unfortunate. So it is the one friend of the misfortune, right? Bad luck. That I am connected with this man because we have the handcuff, right? Tied to both our hands. So if he wants to go for a smoke, I am to assist him. I am to go together with him, right? Because there's no way. We are connected by the handcuff, right? That's what here Mr. Easton told. Goodbye, Miss Fairchild. He then said goodbye to Miss Fairchild, right? Though he wanted to stay and talk to her, but duty calls, right? He has to now meet the requirement of his fellow being who is handcuffed with him. Duty calls, he said, right? So my duty is calling. I have to listen to the duty. I have to follow the duty, he said. He held out his hand for a farewell, and he held out his left hand, right, to say goodbye to her. Right? Farewell means goodbye, right? It is too bad you are not going east, she said, reclothing herself with manner and style. And then Miss Fairchild said, it is really bad that you are not going to east. I thought that you'll go to east where our journey will be passing by very happily because you and I will be okay reaching at the same place. But what to do? Right, she said. Right? So this is my bad luck that you are going to another room in the midway. Right, she said. She said reclothing herself. Reclothing means arranging her dress. She is a lady after all, so she needed to arrange her dress every time, right, with manner and style. But she was a stylish lady. She was a stylish lady, as we already know, right? A beautiful young lady, right? But you must go on to Leavenworth, I suppose. But she questioned, but you are certainly going to Leavenworth, right? I think so, she said. Then Miss Fairchild asked Mr. Easton, right, that you would not get down here on the way, right? You would definitely go to Leavenworth, right? She asked. Yes, said Easton. And Easton said, yes, we are definitely going to Leavenworth. I must go on to Leavenworth. So I have no other option. I have to go to Leavenworth because, right, the prisoner is being taken there, where he will be imprisoned for 7 years in Leavenworth prison. That's why I am to go there, he said. The two men settled down the aisle into the smoker. So the two men got up. Who these two men are? Mr. Easton and the other roughly dressed, heavily built man, right? The sad-faced, the glum-faced man. The two men settled down, right? Moved, you can say, timidly, right? Clearing the way. Down the aisle. Aisle is a passage between the two rows of seats, right? They took their way to the smoke, right? As the other ones to smoke a cigarette, right? So they went down. Listen now. Now what happens at the end of this story? See the twist. The two passengers in a seat nearby had heard most of the conversation. So in this very compartment, other than the two who just now got up and went, and Miss Fairchild, there were other two passengers as well, who were passive listeners so far. They were listening to all the conversation, what is going on among them, right? So when the two got up and went to the smoker, right, the two other passengers in a seat nearby had heard most of the conversation. Conversation means the talk between these three, right? Said one of them, and then one of them said to the other man, right, his partner, his friend perhaps, that Marcel is a good sort of chap. So he appreciated the police officer. That Marcel is a good fellow. Right, he said. Sort of chap means fellow. That Marcel is a good fellow. That Marcel is a good guy. Right, he said. Some of these Western fellows are all right. And he appreciated. Some of these Western police officers are very nice. They are quite attractive to look at. Right, and their duties also. Right, that's what he appreciated. The Marcelship of the West. Pretty young to hold an office like that, isn't it? Asked the other. And the other man said, right? Pretty young. And he is quite young also to become a police officer. And who is taking the charge of the office at a very, very young age. Right? So this is a great responsibility of this young officer who has become an officer at a very, very young age, he said. Right? Then the other person said, young? Exclaimed the first speaker. The first speaker again says to the other one, young? Did you really find it young? Why? Right? Well, he said. Why means well. Oh, didn't you catch on? Didn't you see? Didn't you understand when the conversation was going on? Right? Didn't you realize? Right? Say, did you ever know an officer to handcuff a prisoner to his right hand? And then the question asks, did you ever see a police officer, right, putting a handcuff to his right hand with the prisoner? Will the police officer ever do such mistake? He asked. Right? So the story ends with a question. Right? Now, we are supposed to get the answer. Who is the real police officer and who is the convict? Right? Who is the criminal? Right? And who is being taken to Leavenworth prison? Right? So in actuality, we found here that. Right? So did you ever know an officer to handcuff a prisoner to his right hand? A police officer will not put handcuff in his right hand. Right? Understand? Because the police officer definitely will have to free his right hand. If any odd thing goes on, he will have to take out the pistol with his right hand and shoot. Right? Understand? So that is why the twist in the story is revealed. Right? The charm of the story is here seen at the end of the story. Who the real culprit is? The real culprit is Mr. Easton, right? Whose right hand is handcuffed to the left hand of the police officer. So the glum-faced man, or the roughly dressed man, or the heavily built man is actually the Marcel, right? Understand now? And Mr. Easton is the culprit. Mr. Easton is being taken to Leavenworth prison, right, for counterfeiting money, right? But you know that how the glum-faced man saved the reputation of Mr. Easton when he was met by his known friend, Miss Fairchild. So many a times we fall into such awkward situations where if you reveal your identity, it is the same on you, right? So there are certain things that happen, right? And the reality is hidden, right? The actuality is hidden. The originality is hidden, right? And here you see the glum-faced man played the role, right? Very beautifully. Though he is silent, only twice he speaks in the story, but he has saved the reputation of Mr. Easton, right? So if Miss Fairchild would come to know that Mr. Easton has become a criminal, as he has seen today in the look of a police officer and introduced by the glum-faced man to her, right? If she has known that Mr. Easton has become a criminal, right? So she would, for the rest of her life, also feel very, very bad, right? My childhood friend, right, when grown up, has become a criminal. So that burden will remain in her heart, right? She will be always feeling very, very odd, very, very awkward, very, very clumsy to realize that her friend has become a criminal, right? So she would also feel ashamed of, right, of calling or naming such man as her friend. That's why the police officer, right, sacrificed his own self, right, and he indirectly called himself a criminal and made Mr. Easton, who is originally the criminal, the culprit, a police officer or a marshal, right? So such odd situations many people do face, right? And many people try to rescue from certain situations in order to hide your real identity, right? So that's what happened in this story, Hearts and Hands. So it started with hearts and ended up with hands, right? So I hope this story is uh, nice and liked by you all. So please carry on viewing this video, and if you have any doubts you can clear it out by sending your doubts, right? And hope soon you'll get the notes to write, and till then we'll meet in the next class what we have. Thank you very much.